Okay, hello everyone. My name is Bob Niekamp and welcome to our webinar, The Power of Microsoft Teams. I hope that you're all excited and ready to learn about Teams and how truly revolutionary this system can be for your organization. Before we begin, let's go over some basic housekeeping. Of course, we're sensitive to everyone's time, so we're aiming to bring this in around 45 to 50 minutes. Depending on the Q&A, we'll definitely bring it in by noon. While your individual phone lines are muted, if you have any questions along the way, simply click on the raise hand icon and type in your question, and we will do our best to address it. So that said, let me introduce you to today's speakers and give you a little background about us. Craig Pollock is the founder and CEO of FPA Technology Services. He's been working with small to mid-sized businesses, helping them leverage and secure their technology for over 30 years. And while Craig has grown FPA into one of the most respected IT service providers in Los Angeles, he also acts as the outsourced or virtual CIO or CTO for a select group of clients. His knowledge and experience is one of the reasons FPA specializes in the investment advisor, CPA, and manufacturer distributor vertical markets. He's active in the industry, speaking at industry events, has a number of articles published, and has been on a number of podcasts. As I said before, my name is Bob Niekamp, and while my primary focus these days has been around Microsoft Teams, Office 365, and cybersecurity, my responsibilities as FPA also include managing our vendor relations, staff certification and training programs, procurement functions, as well as acting as a virtual CIO for a number of our clients as well.
Thanks for the intro, Bob. We're ready to rock this thing?
Yes, definitely. Let's do it.
All righty. Well, that's my cue that you can hear my mic, so that's a good thing. So let's dive in and talk a little bit about FPA real quickly, just to give you background as to who we are, what we do, and an understanding of why we're going to be talking about Teams and sort of how come we know it. But anyway, FPA Technology Services, we've been in business for 29 years. We have about 22, 23 employees. Our mantra, or one of our mantras, is business before technology. And to us, this means that we focus on the business aspects and the value proposition that technology brings to our clients' businesses, not just for the sake of technology, but really it is about business. So our core values, and our number one core value, is take care of the client. And so we believe that if we're doing this, everything else will fall into place. We truly believe that IT has been shortchanged for way too long. And again, that's why one of our taglines is IT the way it's supposed to be, right? It's gotten a bad rap. We've been doing this for a really long time. We've worked out a lot of the kinks, and we're really about bringing high quality, timely, and cost-effective IT services to our clients. It may seem like a marketing tagline, but we really believe in what we do, and we believe that IT has just been served up, in such a mediocre way that people have come to accept mediocrity when it comes to their IT. And hopefully we're the guys that break that mold. So our goal is to deliver on this promise, and this is who we are, take care of the client, and really about redefining what it means to be an IT service provider. So given all that, we work with a number of different clients in the greater Los Angeles area, but we pretty much specialize with professional service firms, companies that are like registered investment advisors, CPAs, business managers, insurance brokers, attorney fee firms. But at the same time, we also work with manufacturers and distributors, nonprofits, and all sorts of other businesses. Like I said, we've had our doors open for 29 years, and we have clients that we've gotten in the last month or so, and we have clients that we have since we opened our doors 29 years ago. So we're really about the long-term relationship. We're about taking care of our clients, and that's sort of the purpose behind this webinar, is to share our knowledge, share our experience without any sort of sales BS behind it. We're not here to sell you on anything. We're just here to transfer some knowledge and hopefully help you guys see the value of Teams and what it can do for your organization. So that being said, let's dive in and start talking about Teams.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Craig. So, as you said, let's get into it and take a real high level overview today about Microsoft Teams and what exactly does that mean? Well, we're going to start with what exactly is Teams. You know, there a lot of people are using that buzzword out there, but let's get into it and learn about what it is, learn about what it does, and how we can use it. We're also going to learn about the key differences between Teams and similar apps out there like Zoom and GoToMeeting and applications like that. We'll compare Teams to those and see how they're the same and also how they're different. So what does improved collaboration look like? And what we mean by that, guys, is, you know, in the past 3 months, everyone's life has really kind of been turned upside down, and owners of companies and managers are taking a good hard look at what it's like to work remotely, what it's like to work in some hybrid situation, and how do we really improve our teamwork in these times now? The world is kind of spun on its edge, and we have to spin with it, and to do that, we have to improve the way that we collaborate and communicate with each other. So on that same note, we're going to talk a little bit about how video chat can improve your culture. If you're like me, I'm sure you're a little bit starved for you know, some face-to-face conversations. And while we might not be there just yet, video chatting can really help break down some barriers and allow us to communicate much better with each other. We're also going to talk about really what FPA finds to be the most, one of the key reasons that you should really take a hard look at Teams, and that's how it integrates into Office 365. So I'm sure, although not everyone on this call, this webinar is on Office 365, I'm sure that you do use Office products such as Excel, Word, PowerPoint. Some of you might even use OneNote out there, and how that Teams integrates with these products is really one of the key features of Teams. Okay, and finally, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how Teams makes it easier and more productive to work together. So you guys can see a overriding theme here about what Teams does, and what Teams is going to do is it's going to improve our collaboration, it's going to improve our communication, and it's ultimately going to make us more productive together in this new world that we face right now.
Cool. So we got a lot of good stuff that we're going to cover. Before we jump in, one of the things that we do want to just kind of get a pulse check on is we have a quick little quick little poll just to see what everybody's use of Teams and where they stand right now in terms of their knowledge is. So, going to launch this poll right now. What is your organization's current use of Microsoft Teams? So you don't use it, you use it, but sort of only minimally. And then we use Teams, and it's key to how we work. So love to see how our audience is filling this out. Some cool numbers behind the scenes. I get to see a lot of stuff as it's being filled out, so that's cool. Give it just another, few seconds. 73% of you have voted, so 75%. Anybody's working and not watching, I totally respect that and get it. Although if we could Alt Tab back over to this and answer the poll, that would be great. So we can keep things moving along. 77%, 82% voted. So it's kind of exciting. Getting close. Again, let's just give it another, I don't know, 5 seconds. Up to 85%. I don't know that it's going to change the numbers that drastically because it's kind of becoming self-evident here. So this is good. All right. So I think we're going to close this poll. Last 5 seconds. Anyone ready to go? Anyone still alt-tabbing over to it? We're good. We're good. 86%. Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? All right. We're going to close it now. So what are the results? I'm sure you guys are all curious, but this is the way it turned out. So 58% of the attendees right now don't use Teams. out of the other half, or 40%, about half of that uses Teams, but minimally, and then a decent portion actually are using it, and it's key to how you guys work. So some interesting information. Thank you for that. Sort of gives us an understanding of the audience and who we're communicating with. So we'll talk about things from these three different views, right? Whether you don't have it, whether you have it, you barely use it, and whether you have it and you're using it a lot. So that being said, I'm going to pull this up and we'll continue on. So as Simon Sinek likes to say, let's start with why, right? Why are we even talking about Teams? Well, we're talking about it because how we work is changing, right? This is kind of humorous because we started working on all of this information long before the pandemic hit, but you can see how much this makes sense now after the pandemic hit, and how a great majority of the knowledge workers in the world are working remotely now, and has completely changed the paradigm of how we work. Right? So employees are more mobile. All of this was happening long before COVID hit, but literally we've taken 5 years worth of societal change and forced it to happen in 2 weeks, right? So literally businesses were moving more and more remote over time. And the thought was, within the next 5 to 10 years, a great percentage of knowledge workers were going to be working remotely. Well, we forced that to happen with the pandemic and the work from home, stay-at-home work orders that we're now, just working remotely, a completely different paradigm. So kind of humorous to say that 72% of the employees will be working remotely by 2020. Again, this figure was taken before the pandemic hit. 56% of meetings have at least one remote attendee. A third of meetings are 100% virtual. 38% join via mobile, and videos becoming the norm. It's actually pretty humorous. A couple weeks ago, within our company here, we were having a meeting, and somebody said, geez, I think I see you guys more now than when we were actually working in the office physically together. Just because all of our calls, all of our meetings, everything that we're doing now is virtual. Everything that we're doing now is online through video. So it is the new norm, no question. So that being said, meeting attendees need better tools, right? Obviously, it was a commission report by Microsoft, but the stresses of today's meetings, they're longer than they're planned. Attendees are multitasking. People are unprepared. There's people who show up late. They're hard to schedule. Too many meetings. They're hard to collaborate with because the tools aren't there if we're sitting next to each other. So it's pretty interesting to see that 60% are unsatisfied with current meetings, and 57% find meetings unproductive. Right, and a lot of that comes to how we're running meetings and what the content is like and the tools that we have to run those meetings. If we find that 50% of our meetings are status meetings or collaborative meetings, then us just getting together in a room with a piece of paper and talking about stuff is really doing a disservice to how we could improve our productivity, leveraging tools to help us do that. Literally, that's where Teams comes in. So Teams adds a whole nother level, a whole nother capability above and beyond just meetings.
Okay, so let's jump in, guys, and just say right away, hello to Microsoft Teams. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of what Microsoft Teams is. And basically, Teams is a hub for teamwork in Office 365. And what do we mean by that? Well, you're going to see here, guys, a reoccurring trend, and that's how we communicate with each other in this new paradigm, and how we collaborate and how we share information. These are all key reasons as to why Teams is a valuable tool to have in your for your company. So what do I mean by communicate? We need to recognize how Teams can make life easier and, you know what, more fun for your employees to communicate with each other, with their clients. It allows us to become more engaging with each other. We can become more contextual, and all these great things can come from using this Teams app. How can we collaborate better? We can see how Teams can save us time when working and collaborating with our coworkers. You know, like I said before, one of the biggest reasons that we love Teams is how it integrates into Office 365 applications. So we can definitely be more efficient when we're collaborating, and we can also collaborate on our own schedules. We'll talk a little bit about that more in a minute. Customize and extend. So we need to understand how Teams can kind of help us manage products, resources, and activities in one central space. Not only can Teams integrate with Office 365 apps, but Teams allows us to also integrate with other third-party applications and processes and devices and all these different things that we can use to integrate into Teams so that no one really gets left out, and we can't say, oh, well, he can't use Teams because he's this setup. Teams has done a great job of making sure that everyone and every type of device can use it. So we can work with confidence. Again, you know, what do we talk about that? Well, today, cybersecurity is top of mind for everyone. And I don't know about you, but I think that Microsoft has the money and the power to make a pretty big wall to protect their stuff. And this is very key to them. So we can really work with confidence, knowing that we're compliant. We can work manageably within this construct, and we also have that enterprise level security, you know, that we need in today's day and age to protect our information. Okay, guys, so this is a really great slide, and what it does is it, at a very high level, explains what does Microsoft Teams do? What are all the main components that make up the Microsoft Teams pie? What I'm going to do is take a little bit of time and go around the circle here and explain the different aspects of how Teams can benefit your company. And we're going to start here right at the top with the managed contacts. So I'm sure a lot of questions out there are, well, how does Teams work with contacts? And the great thing about Teams is that it's going to integrate, first of all, with everyone that's in your company. So if you have a end user at your company that has a Microsoft Office 365 mailbox, they are automatically in Teams is included. So everyone who's in your company will automatically be included in your Teams contacts. But we're also going to be able to include external contacts of people who are on 365. For example, FPA has a lot of clients who are on Office 365. So it's very easy for us to communicate with them and to set up meetings and to share documents with our clients, not just FPA employees, but with our clients who are on Office 365. Now, even though those two are really great, we can also include external contacts. And I know that's the big question because a lot of you are saying, hey, I want to be able to talk with potential clients. I want to be able to talk with people who aren't on Office 365. Well, don't worry about it. We can include everyone in this. We can do internal contacts, external contacts, even if they're not on 365, they don't have the apps, no one will be left out. So don't worry about it. We can get everyone included here. So the number one way that FPA uses Microsoft Teams is the chatting and the calling. This is a really great way, especially because the majority, at this time, pretty much everyone at FPA is still working remotely. We can communicate with each other very quickly, one-on-one or even in a group. So that makes it very convenient as opposed to having to pick up the phone. I can just quickly instant message anybody in my at FPA at any time and know where they stand, and maybe they're busy, maybe they're on a call. These are all things that teams can easily tell me where they are, if they're available, or maybe perhaps they're away. The great thing about the chat and call function in Teams is that it doesn't go away. It's perpetual. The chat stays forever until you were to actually go and delete it. All the information. So, for example, if you were going to look at something that was written a couple months ago, that's not going to be deleted. You're going to be able to scroll up and find that information. And what this is great is it allows you to connect on your schedule. Now, what do I mean by connect on your schedule? Let me give you an example. So here we are at FPA. Craig is my boss. And Craig often has, he would say his greatest ideas late at night. We'll say 8 o'clock, 9:30 at night. And of course, he wants to tell me his great idea, but he also wants to respect my time. And of course, I'm at my home, and what I can do is I'm watching my shows, and I don't want to be bothered with Craig's great idea at that time, but I also want to be able to give it its just due when I am back to work. So if Craig takes the time and sends me that chat at night, I can look the next morning or maybe later that night when I do have some available time, and that message will almost look like a brand new email to me. So Craig can ensure that the great idea that he had gets to me, and I can also look at it on my time. So that's a really powerful thing with the chat function. We can also highlight important content. And we can keep conversations fun with graphics and emojis and things like that. Of course, not crossing any professional boundaries, but we can have fun with smiley faces and things like that. Also, what we can do is attach files and we can access files for easier collaboration. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So moving on down the line, I'll get here now to host meetings. And what do I mean by that? Well, this is one of the best ways that you can use Teams, and you can set up meetings through Teams and Outlook. I'm sure a lot of you on this call right now use Outlook as your way to organize your calendar. I do. It's great. Well, Teams integrates with Outlook completely. And so you can actually send uh, meeting invitations through Teams or Outlook, and they completely integrate. Your calendar syncs into the Teams application. We can send out one-time meetings or reoccurring meetings if we want. As I said before, if we wanted to invite internal participants, that's very easy, but we can also do the external participants. Anybody who's going to be that we want to talk to can use Teams as a meeting function. And so we'll talk a little bit more. That's in our second webinar when we really kind of get into how we're going to use Teams. We talk a little bit what that would look like, but just know that there's no limitations to Teams as to who you can invite into the meeting and who you can share this application with. A great thing within the meetings is you can take notes and we can post files. And we can also record the meeting, which is a really great function that FPA uses quite a bit. When we have an employee, someone can't make it, well, we don't want to stop the entire meeting just because one person can't make it. So what we're going to do is we're going to record that meeting, and then they can watch it at a later time at their convenience so that everyone's on the same page. Okay, storing and sharing files. What do I mean by that, storing and sharing files? Well, basically what happens is when you add a file to the Teams app, it gets uploaded to the SharePoint site that has been created where all your documents are stored. So files that are created in here, they get stored in this SharePoint site, and that's where everyone accesses these files. Now, don't worry, let's say you have a private conversation. You're saying, Bob, I don't want everybody in my company to see all the files. Well, don't worry, if we have created a situation in Teams, like a private chat or a private channel, those files are gonna be stored in your personal OneDrive. Okay, so moving on, let's go to manage projects and workstations. Conversations, files, and tools are all saved in one spot. We can have conversations, we can run projects all through Teams. We can collaborate on documents. What do I mean by that? We can reduce document versioning. So for example, let's say I had a question with Excel and I could put it on the message to Craig. He could open it up, he could fix the cell function, get that to read write, and then he could send it right back to me. And so we reduce that document versioning. Finally, what we're going to do is we're going to be able to integrate business applications. So great things such as Planner and Power BI that people might use, but also third-party things such as Flow and Twitter, ADP. And I know quite a few of you out there are wondering if your TikTok videos will integrate. Well, I'm happy to say that there is an application that does allow your TikTok videos to make it into Teams. So that kind of gives us an overall view of what Teams can do for us. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Teams versus Zoom and GoToMeeting. So at the very top level, these are the same. And what do I mean by that? Is that they're all video functions, video conferencing. So Microsoft Teams does have video conferencing as well as Zoom, right? And also screen sharing uh, is available.
So,
And
Bob, to your point, sorry, I'll jump in here. Um, this is one of those questions that I get asked a lot is what's the difference between Teams and Zoom? And when you look at video conferencing and screen sharing, they come across as very similar. And so sometimes it's hard to describe the differences. But as we go through these things, you really start to see that Teams is way more of a platform to run your business on, whereas Zoom is primarily video conferencing. So sorry to jump in on you there, Bob.
okay, great. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate that. So this is where we're going to differentiate between Microsoft Teams and Zooms and the other applications. And that is that Microsoft Teams, we have that instant messaging function at all times. We can communicate through chat with each other through all times, and Zoom doesn't allow us to do that. As well as what Microsoft Teams allows us is to use that document storage and collaboration that we've been talking about. We can share files through Microsoft Teams with our teammates as well as potential clients or clients that we already have. As I said before, the integration with Outlook calendaring. This is really convenient, guys, when you want to make a quick Outlook schedule with somebody. You can do it right through the Teams app. You can do it through your Outlook calendar, and that gets integrated right into everything. There's nothing separate that you need to do. It's all included, as well as integrated into OneNote. So for those of you who out there who do use OneNote, we'll show you in a little bit, FPA does use OneNote, and it's really convenient for us to share meeting notes and information of past meetings, and also take notes of what's currently going on there. So as far as OneDrive and SharePoint, so that's really great. These are applications that are included on your Office 365 license. OneDrive is kind of like a Dropbox situation, if you will, and SharePoint is more of a community Dropbox, if you will, some very simplifications of those two products. But what it does, Microsoft Teams does, is it allows us to integrate with those at all times. And finally, what it's going to do is going to give us that voice over IP phone capability. It gives us a really great, let's say our phones go down, well, we can make a phone call to each other through the Teams application to each other very seamlessly. And that really gives us an added benefit, in today's world, if something goes down or let's say we have any issues, that just gives us a backup to know that we can communicate with each other if we need to. Okay, this is about what Microsoft can do depending on the types of devices you have. And like I said before, we're going to have a consistent experience across all devices, screens, sizes, and platforms. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if you're on a PC, if you're on a Mac, if you're on a mobile device, you're on the web, a conference phone, a desk phone, all these things, all these applications and devices are going to integrate with Teams. We can access Teams across devices, whether we're working remotely, in the office, or on the go. And that would be great. So let's say that you're in Los Angeles and you have a coworker who's on a plane to New York and you want to share a file, or they need to be working on a presentation they're about to give. Teams gives us that ability to share and interact with documents very easily through even the mobile app. So Microsoft spent a lot of money making the Teams application very strong and very robust. And the Teams application will work on Android, iPad, iPhone, any type that you have out there, the Teams application will work. So that kind of covers all the devices that we can use for Teams, which is quite a bit.
Yep. Good stuff, Bob. So want to jump in here now, start peeling this back a little bit. So Bob gave us a really great overview of all these different things that Teams can do, and I think set the stage for why we believe Teams is really more of a platform than Zoom and GoToMeeting and Google Hangouts and those sorts of applications. Those are really more video conferencing, video sharing, meeting sort of things. Whereas Teams is really this bigger platform. Now, at the same time, don't want to confuse the conversation and say, wow, Teams can do all this stuff, therefore it must be really complicated and hard to use. and it's actually further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth in terms of it's really, really easy and it's really functional. And that's why I think we love it and are really, dare I say, pushing our clients to use it because we see the results. We see how we're working. We see how our culture is affected by this. So here's a quick little slide in terms of 5 reasons to use Teams instead of email, right? Because email is great, but email is overused. I think everybody would agree. We almost get inundated and get lost in our Outlook email inboxes. And so when would you use Teams to communicate as opposed to uh, email or Outlook? And like Bob said, it sort of depends on availability and message and content and what it is in terms of the priority of that communication and when you need an answer by, those sorts of things. So it all goes into that. What we find is as we're using Teams, you're not getting spam, you're not getting stuff from the outside world. It's purely a communication tool. So it's real easy to have this up all the time, not necessarily up in terms of it's on the screen, but if a notification happens, it's in the background running and a notification will pop up. So pretty often we'll be pinging each other through Teams, hey, are you there, right? If I have a question and I need to ask Bob a question, again, I have this great idea, but it's not at 8 at night or 2:30 in the morning. It's at 11 o'clock and I want to run something by Bob. I don't want to send him an email and wait for him to get around to going into Outlook and looking at it. I can just ping him on Teams and go, Bob, hey, are you there? And he can write back immediately, yeah, I'm here, what's up? Hey, I've got a quick question, blah, 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 blah. Yes, okay, go down this route, cool, we're done. Um, and so it's very interactive, it's very easy to use, and it gets rid of a lot of that overhead that you have with Teams. I mean, with Outlook and with email. So it's really great from a conversational aspect, from a check-in aspect. And then literally, you can be having a chat and, hey, chatting isn't enough. Okay, boom, I click on a button and I'm talking to Bob. Or I click on another button and I'm having a video conference with Bob. And it's literally that easy and that fluid. And I think that's the whole point of this platform is making communication and interaction so incredibly easy that you do it more. And I think that's what we're finding, incredibly well with our team is that it makes us more engaged with each other, even though we're literally we have 22, 23 offices, right? Because everybody's working remotely. So what does communicating through chat look like, right? So it's a threaded, persistent, and robust chat. We can do anything through that. It's rich text. We can chat. We can call. We can meet across devices. If I call Bob or I chat with Bob and he's not in front of his computer, he gets pinged on his phone and he can pick up his phone and we can chat. So it gives, again, in this new normal, quote unquote, new normal, in this work from home environment where we're not sitting in front of our computers for a full 8 hours at our work desk, it gives us a lot of flexibility to still be available, still work, still keep moving things forward, but not necessarily be tied down to our computers like we have been. We can chat with groups as easily as individuals, so we can pull somebody in. So if I'm talking to Bob and I need to pull somebody in from the team, I can literally just click on the plus sign, add somebody in, and now the 3 of us are chatting. Same sort of thing if I'm on a video call with Bob and I need to bring somebody else in, I can click on a button and their workstation or their phone or whatever starts ringing, they pick it up, and immediately they're in a group video call with us. Again, very, very simple and very easy to use. And those are the sorts of things that, because it's so simple and so easy, you use it more often. It just becomes part of your natural workflow. And that's what we're really seeing and really love.
I'd
So
just like to jump in here, Craig, and
sure.
Hey, one comment here. We're saying a lot of the video calls, and I just wanted to make clear for everyone who's listening that you can run a meeting, and some people can be on audio, and some people can be on video. So, of course, not everybody is camera ready at all times of the day. We understand. So, these meetings that we're talking about, they don't always have to be on the webcam. You can call in through the phone line and interact that way. So, if you don't feel like being on the webcam that day, we can still hold the meetings. And I think that's important for everyone because sometimes you don't want to be on the camera or you're not in a place that can do it, but you can still be on the calls through audio.
Right, that's a great point. Another point that I'll jump in with as well is as we talk about video and we talk about the need for webcams, there's a lot of businesses who over the last 3 months have had to zig instead of zag, right? They had to come to grips with we're all working remotely. Now what? Hey, Teams would be great or Zoom would be great, but we don't have webcams. What do we do? Oh, we need to order a bunch of webcams. Oh, that's another $35 to $50 a user or something like that for cheap webcams if you don't have one. Um, to that extent, there's actually apps now that you can install on your phone that for like $3 or $4 or $5 turn your phone into a webcam that integrates in with your computer. So literally, you can still use your computer, but instead of having to spend $35 or $50 on a webcam, use your camera on your phone as your webcam. A little complicated, I think, for the non-techie people out there, but very easy to do and works really well and gives you an option other than feeling like, well, not everybody's going to have a webcam, therefore we can't use the system. So there's a lot of ways to work around these things, a lot of creative ways that are going on these days. So that being said, right, you can chat while you're in meetings, you can share files in chat while you're in meetings. You can say an at mention so somebody else would be aware that you're including them in the conversation. And like Bob said earlier, because it's rich text and fully capable, you can include memes and animated GIFs and anything like that in terms of what's current. This isn't sort of, your dad's IM. This isn't AOL online or just a rough version or a dumbed down version of chat. This is a pretty robust, and there's a lot of things that you can do with it. And the
Well,
beauty
and
of it is it stays there afterwards, right? There's an ongoing record forever. Sorry, Bob.
no, I was just going to say the really great thing about the memes and the GIFs is they do have a time and the place, guys. And I want you to know that Microsoft has taken great care so that there aren't any, let's say R-rated memes or anything that could potentially cross a business line. Of course, we're not advocating that in any level, and we would leave it up to you, to know some employees might react better to a meme than others. But just know that it's all PG. Microsoft, of course, watches that very closely, and so there's no worry that any employees would use these memes or this way to discuss with each other that would be considered, HR wouldn't be too happy with.
There you go. Cool. So this is kind of, again, at a high level that you can use chat. Chat is a huge portion of this. It's a huge portion of how to stay interactive, how to stay involved, how to stay connected to your staff and keep your culture going forward. And so another thing that you can do is do it through calls, right? So again, this is a beautiful thing. And from two different perspectives, let's think about this, is that, and actually maybe three perspectives. So one is out of the box, internally, you can make phone calls outside of your phone system to anybody in your organization. So in one respect, this is great because it integrates with the other capabilities of Teams. But also it's a great business continuity tool. If something happens, who would have thought that we'd be in a pandemic and you wouldn't be allowed to work in your office, right? If something happens from a business continuity standpoint and your phone system is down, you can still interact with all of your staff through the system. Obviously, 365 needs to be up and the internet needs to be up. These days, that's sort of a given, right? We think of this as we think of the internet as a utility, but you can make calls. Now, on top of that, Microsoft is going into the phone system business. So you can literally buy a plan from them, and on top of Teams, run your phone system through Teams. So rather than having a separate, Panasonic system or Mitel or Cisco or what have you, phone system or ShoreTel, you can literally have your phone system be a VoIP system through Teams, through Microsoft, where your phone lines ring through any of these applications. So that's what I meant by three things. So one is you can use it as a phone system if you'd like. You can use it as a phone system outside of your internal phone system, just for you internally. And then three, you can use it from a business continuity standpoint. So it's pretty cool solution that you can do all around here. So another thing that it can do is collaborate. And Bob mentioned that earlier. What does that look like? Well, you can have uh, file storage and file sharing and sharing files across different teams. So when you set up teams, and we'll talk about this in a second, right, within different functional areas within your company, you can have a marketing team, you can have a business development team, you can have a production team, you can, if you're a CPA firm, you can have a business management team or a tax team. And all of these teams are organized in such a way that the communications flow just within those teams and whoever the members are. Your documents you can store within those teams. Your OneDrive or OneNote notebooks, again, are segregated and secured within those teams. So it gives you a lot of easy access to store things logically. You can search for things. You can track project notes, files, meetings all in one place. And we'll show you in a second how we use meetings and how we use OneNote to manage our meetings in we believe, a pretty new but very, very effective way to do that. It integrates with SharePoint, OneNote, OneDrive, again, Office apps, all of these things that we talked about. And the security access control, again, is based on all the teams. So one of the beauties of collaboration, right, is being able to author and work on documents at the same time, and not pull up a document and find out somebody else already has it open. So you can only open it in read only, and now you have to manage your changes with that other person's changes, and how do you move them together? Very confusing. So a lot of this stuff gets addressed. So lastly is it also integrates with third-party apps into the Teams workflow. So it's a pretty cool thing, and Microsoft's done a lot of work in terms of literally you can connect up all of these different apps in your different teams to work a different way. We won't get into too many details here about how this works or what you do. That's more of, I think we'll cover that in the intermediate training class. But the point being is they've built this in such a transparent way that you can integrate some of these other capabilities into Teams, so that it just makes working in it that much easier. So in terms of running meetings, I'm going to turn it back over to Bob to talk a little bit about how meetings can be more effective, and then I'll jump back in terms of how we actually run meetings leveraging this tool.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. So, as we've been talking a lot about Teams, guys, what are the big things? And number one is the chat function, the integration with Office 365. But really, we want to touch base on the effective meetings. And what do we mean by that? Well, we can get more out of our meetings with Microsoft Teams. We can engage people from the beginning, in the middle, and then after as well. And so before, this happens often, Craig and I will have a meeting together, and we can jump on a quick call beforehand. We can chat, we can share the agenda, we can communicate through the meeting actually with each other. We can present live content. One of the things that FPA utilizes quite a bit is the share screen function. So it becomes very easy when you're on the phone with someone and you can say, hey, you know what, instead of me trying to verbally explain to you what it is that I'm doing, let me just go ahead and share my screen, and you can go ahead and see what I'm looking at. And Teams even has the ability so that the viewer can take control of the other person's computer. So the way that we can interact with each other is during the meeting is pretty great. And then of course afterwards we have these ability to have action items, files, notes, and recordings at our hands when we need them after the meeting has occurred. Okay, and then let's just really dive a little bit deeper into what I just talked about in regards to the meeting. So what we can do is the meeting life cycle, the experience beforehand, during, and after the meeting here. We can chat with attendees before the meeting, like I said. We can use our calendar to review upcoming meetings, review the meeting agenda. Again, during the meeting, we can have the chat open. We can have documents available at our fingertips that we can share to other people on the meeting at any time we wish. After the meeting, we can review and share those notes, and we can continue the discussion in the same meeting thread. So just really kind of hammering home that idea, guys, that Teams is another extension of your 365 products, your Office products, and how you interact. You know, as we're doing right now, Craig is doing a PowerPoint presentation, and we're just communicating through those MS apps. We can do this through Teams very easily. We can share video, we can do PowerPoint, the mobile screen even if we wanted to. Okay, innovative audio and video, as we said, you know, our ability to do high definition video in today's world is there. We can also use the video background blur. I will admit, although Craig maybe doesn't want me to, in the beginning, I got very excited, did a lot of the background. Sometimes I would be in Fiji, sometimes I would be on the beach, all these different places. In reality, I was at home, but they're fun for a while. But of course, if you have something you don't want to see, we can blur that background and make sure that they don't see what you don't want them to see.
So a lot of good points here, Bob. Maybe a little, I don't want to say overwhelming, but without being able to picture how does this really work? What do these things really mean? So one of the things that we wanted to show you, and this is just a quick sample, is sort of how do we run our meetings and how do we leverage Teams to do that? Again, it's sort of a different mindset and a different change in workflow. So if you can imagine historically when we had a meeting, and this was whether it was in-house, together, or even virtually in the past, before Teams, we would do an agenda that was in Microsoft Word that would be saved somewhere on the network. We would email that out ahead of time of the meeting. If I made changes or anybody made changes to the agenda, we'd have to go find it on the network, update it, send it out to everybody again. And then at the meeting, we would show up and either we would print out 8 copies because there's 8 attendees, or we'd expect everybody to show up with a printed copy, or they'd show up with an electronic copy if they came to the meeting with a laptop or what have you. And then we'd take minutes and we'd write down the minutes on paper, and then we'd go back and type them up in another Word document or in an email, and then we'd send them off saying, okay, here's everything that we talked about, and here's the action items and what everybody needs to do. And then we'd have to manage keeping track of that stuff so that at the next meeting, we'd follow up on things. Well, that's a lot of manual overhead. Whether you realize it or not, that's a lot of manual stuff that takes a lot of time. So what we did was we incorporated OneNote and Teams into a way that we can do everything all integrated, everything all in the same place. It makes it really easy to work, really easy to keep updated, and really easy for everybody to know what's going on, and we're only working on one version. So how do we do that? If you look at our screen, this is my team screen. So these are a number of different teams that we have, right? Our WAM meeting is something we have every Monday morning. We have a C-level team meeting. We have executive team, leadership team meeting, a business development team, client management team, accounting, right? We have lots of meetings, lots of teams. So how do we keep track of all this stuff, right? So right now, these are the teams that we have set up. We have, personally, I have a personal set of teams or a channel for personal contacts that are outside the business that I actually communicate with through Teams. My ITN Evolve is a business group, and those are people across the country that I communicate with and meet with and talk with using Teams. So in this case, if we're looking at the WAM meeting, right up on top here, we've actually integrated, this is the WAM meeting team OneNote notebook. So you can go into OneNote and you can see down here, Kyle added this to the top of the channel, right, yesterday. Okay, and this wasn't yesterday, this was a while back, but when it was print screened, it was yesterday. So Kyle added the WAM team notebook in OneDrive up to here. So literally I don't have to open a separate program. I don't have to go track down which notebook this is. I don't have to go figure out anything. All I have to do is click on this button right here, WAM team meeting, and it's going to open up our OneNote notebook. And in that, we've got a couple different sections. Again, if you're not familiar with OneNote and what it can do for you, it's literally just a notebook of different ways that you can store information. So in this particular notebook, we have our set of meeting agendas and we have our set of meeting minutes. And so literally, these are all of our meetings that we've had that are our meeting minutes. And we have all of our minutes for all of our meetings right here. So literally, anybody who's part of this meeting team can see this information, and through permissions, we can secure who has rights to make changes, who has rights to view it versus making changes. Everything has an audit trail, so we know who's changed what. We can go back to earlier versions. It's really, again, it's very simple to use, but it's really quite robust in what it can do. And so we've found that this methodology, this way of running teams and running our meetings has really improved our productivity, because we're not doing all this manual stuff with 3 different programs. It's all done right here. And literally in today's meeting, I can click on this and see what we talked about last meeting or 2 meetings ago or 3 meetings ago. I don't have to go on the network and go search it. I don't have to come prepared with where are my notes at, what did we talk about. It's all right here. And so this is what we're talking about when we talk about integration and collaboration, is the ways to organize what you do and the supporting documents and workflow and information around what you do in those groups, quote unquote, which are teams, and helping you to organize your day and organize your information and organize your workflow into just being more productive. You know, to me, I think about uber productivity. I think about every minute I can save. If I can save 5 minutes every month, that's an hour a year. And if I can do that 20 times, that's 20 hours a year. That's half a week a year I've saved just by some sort of productivity. So these sorts of things add up, and you extrapolate that and put it across your whole business and your whole organization. That's a lot of time saved. So these are the sorts of things that we believe pretty strongly in. Like Bob said, you know, one of the cool things is being able to record and play back meetings. And so literally you can record your meeting, save it here in the chat, in the activity level, and have it accessible later on. It's a great training tool. It's a great training methodology. Again, all of these things help you become significantly more productive. So kind of wraps things up, but I'm going to turn it back over to Bob to talk about the takeaways and hopefully, you know, some of the lessons learned, and just give a quick recap, and then we'll sort of tie things up and open things up for questions.
Sure. Thanks a lot, CP. So what are the big takeaways that we hope that you guys have now that we've spent an hour talking about Microsoft Teams? And the number one thing is that we believe Teams is much more than just an online meeting tool. It's much more than just a way to come chat with each other, just a way to meet. It's a robust application that can offer many advantages to your company. Okay, Teams is a platform that provides integrated and advanced chats, calls, video conferencing, collaboration, and document manage. And of course, securely and in one central location. That, of course, again, is the big thing here is we want to be secure and we want it to be in one central location. Teams is going to increase your team's productivity. So we're talked a lot about the new world that we live in, guys, and how can we get collaboration and communication to increase in this new world. And by that extension, Teams is going to help integrate your remote workforce. So like we said at FPA, everyone is pretty much at home right now, and we need ways to keep everyone communicating and up to speed with what's happening with the company. And Teams does a really great job of allowing us to integrate. It's going to help unify our organization's culture. We've talked about this new normal, and that this need, excuse me, this need to have a new perception as to how we're going to work with each other, collaborate with each other. And Teams is going to be that application that helps unify your organization's culture into this new normal. Teams is a great business continuity communications platform. And finally, Teams is a robust and yet simple to use. So hopefully we've been able to convey to you that Teams can do a whole lot of stuff for you, but at the same time, it's really simple to use. Uh, we just wanted to throw that out there too, guys, that as of March 2020, Microsoft has offered a free 6-month E1 trial license, which of course includes Teams. So if you guys are sitting there and you're like, well, sounds pretty cool, but I'd like to try it. Well, Microsoft has extended the offer that you can get set up and give Teams a run for free and have a 6-month trial. So we definitely wanted you guys to know about that. And if you have any more questions about that, obviously we can explain the situation more and how this can possibly benefit you.
So to wrap things up, we do have a really great resource for Microsoft Teams. It's on our website. I know that's a really long URL, so I'd suggest either doing a quick print screen or literally if you go to on the top of our website where it says WFH resources, work from home resources, you click on that and you'll see this page. So a lot of great resources there, a lot of good content there. If you guys have any other questions, I think now's the time. I know we're butting up. It's 12 o'clock. We hit the number exactly.
Yeah,
So,
great job, CP. Really appreciate lots of good stuff here. As he said, we're running out of time here, so hopefully we can maybe answer a couple questions. But if not, of course, Craig and I are available, and we'll give you that information here in just a minute.
yeah, so some of the questions are pretty, I've answered some of them along the way. We talk about, somebody brought up they're using Slack for chat, 365 for email, Zoom for meetings, phone for phone calls. How does Teams integrate that? I think we talked about that. Yes, she said. We answered that question. Does Teams have a Calendly equivalent? It does. There's a program called, I believe it's called Bookings. I think we can talk offline about the differences. That could be a whole separate thing, but Calendly is very good. Bookings is more for if you wanted to, if you had a set number of resources and you wanted to allow the outside world to book those resources, sort of like if you had a barber shop and you had, 12 different chairs, or, a doctor's office, and you wanted to allow people to book available times. That's where Bookings comes into play more than Calendly. Calendly is more really simple for individual sort of calendar scheduling. How well does the audio work with 10 or so attendees? It works great. It's really about the power of the PC that you're on and the internet connection that you have. So we rarely see lag or jitter or anything like that, but it's really dependent on the internet connection. What happens when somebody leaves the company? We disable the email account. Is there a way to take back up the chat info? Yes, all of that would be gone. On their local machines, they would lose access to it, but you'd have access to that. User friendly when it comes to video meetings and clients. Very user friendly, very easy to use. Somebody asked, is it user friendly when it comes to video meetings with clients, i.e. people who aren't part of your organization? Very easy, sort of similar to GoToMeeting in that you send them the meeting invite, they click on it, it takes them to a Microsoft link on the browser, and they can connect up through the web-based version without having to have Teams installed on their computer. So again, to be sensitive to the time, we're a little bit over, almost 5 minutes over. I think, we'll answer the rest of these questions privately, offline, if that's okay with everybody. I don't see any questions that are huge. So yeah, we can separately deal with those individually. Again, I want to be sensitive to everybody's time. So that being said, we do have a couple of webinars. Today's was about an overview of Microsoft Teams. We've got 2 coming up that are going to be training, and we're going to really deep dive and talk about how to use it. So this is obviously for people who have Teams, would be a good opportunity for the large segment of people who, I think it was 58, 59% who are not using Teams. If you do start wanting to use Teams, or you're in the process of implementing it and need to have a training session, July 2nd, 2 weeks from today, that would be great. An intermediate version for more of the administrative side, that'll be 2 weeks from that day in July 16th. So we got these coming up. You can register them by going to our webpage and clicking on either webinars or going to our events page. So that would be great. Love to see you guys at that webinar. Other than that, if you have any other questions, please feel free to email us either at craig.pollock or bob.niekamp. You can check us out on our website, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're all over the place. So I think that's a good wrap up. I appreciate and thank you for your time. Thank you for your participation. There's been a lot of questions. Don't worry, we'll circle back with those questions that we didn't answer. But hopefully this was beneficial and knowledgeable, knowledge transfer for you guys. And I'd love to talk to you and figure out if you're not using Teams and you have Office 365, it's free. It'd be great to figure out how we can help you guys, just improve your productivity and improve your business functions by leveraging this tool. So thank you, Bob. Great job. Appreciate your input. Anything you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, hey, I think we did a great job. Nice information there, CP. We really want to thank everyone for attending. We really appreciate your time. We'd really love to talk with you guys about this more. If you have any questions, just reach out. We hope you have a wonderful day, and everyone stay safe out there.
There you go. Thank you all.
Take care.